Welcome back once again. It's your boy Abdul, the Health Man. I'm here on another great day, another Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on the Grown Folks Podcast. You are tuned into the Health Man Show. I am here to educate and entertain at the same time. Today we have a good topic. I think we have a good topic. I personally believe it's a good topic. We're going to be talking about precocious puberty. All right, we're going to talk about precocious puberty. So, what is puberty? Because everybody's going through it. I have gone through it. Everyone probably on this call has gone through it. Everyone out there in YouTube and in the world, if you're over 16, you more than likely have gone through puberty. So, what is puberty? Puberty is the time in life when a boy or girl becomes sexually mature. It is a process that usually happens between the ages of 10 and 14 for girls and 12 and 16 for boys. It is a physical change, and it affects a boy and girls differently. Okay? We all know this, but I'm going to go through it so you can understand the second part. In girls, the first sign of puberty is usually breast development. Okay? Then hair grows in the pubic area and armpits. And then last but not least, you start to develop or you start to have a period or menstruation. Okay? In boys, puberty begins with the testicles and penis getting larger. Then hair grows in the pubic and arm areas. Muscle growth, voice deepens, facial hair develops as puberty continues. Both boys and girls may get acne. They usually have a growth spurt, rapidly increase in height. And that is for the last 2 to 3 years, bring them closer to adult height, which they reach after puberty. Okay? So that is just giving you a rundown what is puberty. Most people know what puberty is, but I just wanted to give you a rundown what is puberty. Because we're going to be talking about precocious puberty. Okay? We're talking about precocious puberty. Now, what is precocious puberty? Precocious puberty is when children's body begin to change into adult bodies too soon. Too soon. This change is known as puberty. Most of the time, puberty occurs between the ages of 8 in girls and after 9 years old in boys. However, Black, Hispanic, and Native American children might reach puberty a little earlier. Precocious puberty is when puberty begins too early for a child who's going through it. All right? Now, precocious puberty, what do they mean by too early in a child? You have finding kids starting to develop puberty at 6 and 7 years old. This is called precocious puberty. When you're having puberty way too early. Even 8 is considered really early. Okay? Precocious puberty is even earlier than that. You can start saying the kid is starting to develop puberty at the age of 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. These are precocious puberty. In puberty, muscle and bone grows quickly. The body changes shape and size. It starts to change from a child to more of an adult teenager. The causes of precocious puberty can't be found. That's the thing. They don't really know what causes it, but it happens. But there are some factors to it, and we're going to go through that. Rarely, certain conditions such as infections, hormonal issues, tumors, brain issues, or injury may cause precocious puberty. Treatment for precocious puberty may include medicines to delay puberty, such as hormone blockers and things like that. All right? So we're understanding what precocious puberty is. The causes of this type of puberty. The causes that they believe, what actually happens. To understand the cause of precocious puberty in some children, it is helpful to know what happens in puberty. The brain starts the process of making a hormone called gonadotropin releasing hormone, GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. Now I want y'all to understand what gonadotropin releasing hormone is. Gonads stand for sexual organs. So understand that. gonadotropin releasing hormones. So when you hear gonads, that usually has to do with sexual organs. Usually it has to do with a man's testicles and a woman's ovaries in her I'm losing my hand, and her womb. Okay, so it usually has to do with a man's testicles and a woman's ovary in her womb. Okay, when this hormone reaches the small bean gland at the back of the brain, the base of the brain, called the pituitary, it can lead to more estrogen in the ovaries and more testosterone in the testicles. The estrogen makes female traits, testosterone makes male traits. Understand this. When a child starts to go through precocious puberty, they release more gonadotropin hormone. Now, what causes the gonadotropin hormone to be released more? We'll talk about that. They release more gonadotropin hormone. That hormone now signals up to the pituitary gland at the back of the brain. You have this small little gland. It's one of the master glands in the body. You have a few glands that's a master gland. The pituitary is a master gland. The thyroid is a master gland. The thymus is considered a master gland of the body. These are master glands of the body. They have a huge effect on the body. Okay? So you have this hormone going up from the gonadotropin hormone is secreted, and it stimulates the pituitary to make the child's, remember, this is still a kid. This is still a kid. This is a 6-year-old. This is a 7-year-old. I have an 8 and a 6-year-old. I couldn't imagine them going through puberty right now. This is a 6-year-old. This is a 5-year-old. This is a 7-year-old. This is an 8-year-old starting to produce gonadotropin hormone that affects their pituitary gland, that causes their body to signal to the ovaries and the testes, hey, I need you to start pumping out more estrogen, and I need you to start pumping out more testosterone. Okay? This is what it's saying right here. That's what's happening right now. Okay? So this is precocious puberty. Risk factors for precocious puberty. Being a girl. Being a girl. Girls are more likely than boys to have precocious puberty. Okay? This happens almost 4 times often than it does in girls than it does in boys. It's actually rare in boys. It's higher in girls. Even though it's still rare to have someone under the age of 8 go into puberty, it's still rare for that. It's even rarer for a boy. If it's much more common, even though it's rare, to happen to girls. Another risk factor is being obese. Carrying extra weight increases the risk of precocious puberty. Precocious puberty is still rare, affecting less than 1% of U.S. population, according to the National Institute of Health. It's unclear why it's happening more. It's unclear why it's happening more. It is increasing in rate. Even though it's still rare with less than 1%, it's increasing in rate. Although the possible causes of precocious puberty is diet, obesity, genetics, socioeconomic status, and potential exposure to certain chemicals. I'm going to read that again. Precocious puberty is still rare. Fewer than less than 1% of U.S. population, according to the National Institute of Health. Okay? It is unclear why it's happening more, though. I want y'all to understand this. It's happening more. And the possible causes is diet, obesity, genetics, socioeconomic status, and potential exposure to certain chemicals. All right? So now we talked about precocious puberty. It's happening more. Less than 1% of the population gets it. Less than 1% of the population gets precocious puberty. But that number is increasing. That number is increasing. Okay? The average age of puberty onset ranges from 8 to 13 for girls. In the U.S., it has been dropping. Check this out, y'all. Has been dropping by 3 months every decade for the last 40 years, according to 2020 analysts of global data. That means in 40 years, if it was average for a girl to get a period around 14, now it's 13. It has dropped 3 months every year. Every 10 years. So you can imagine if it's at 13 now, in 40 more years, that means people that were having kids in the 90s, the average was like 14. Let's say it was 9 to 14, if we want to say that. Now it's 8 to 13. Maybe in another 40 years, it may be 7 to 12. The population has lost 3 months every decade when it comes down to getting the period. When someone going through puberty, I want to say getting the period. Someone going through puberty. And I'm focusing on girls because this affects girls more than boys. 4 to 5 times more likely precocious puberty is going to happen in girls versus boys. So I'm going to talk more about girls than boys because it's happening way more to girls than boys. In the mid-19th century, this is in the 1800s, the mid-19th century, girls had their first period typically comes 2 years after showing breast or pubic hair at the age of 16. So if you was in the 1800s, it was greater chance that a person would have their period, a girl would have a period between the ages 15 and 16. Today, puberty begins between 8 and 13 on average, with a typical girl having their first period at 12. Okay? Now, we're talking about people back in 1820, 1830, 1840. They were having their period around 15 and 16. Okay? They would start developing breasts and pubic hair because the period we said comes later. It's not the first thing that happens. They start to develop breasts, and they start to develop pubic hair and underarm hair, and then they started to get their period later. That's the last part of puberty in the young lady. And they will get their period around 15 to 16 if you was in the 1800s. 1830, 1840, 1850, 1860. This is what this is saying. The same girls 150 years, 170 years later are now getting their period an average of 12 years old. That means they have taken 4 years off, if you want to say, of childhood, if you want to say that. Their bodies are becoming more of an adult, more of maturing sexually at a young age. The average age now of puberty is between 8 and 13, and the menses comes on at 12. Okay? I want y'all to understand this. This is what's going on. Women are getting sexually developed younger as well as men. They're coming to sexual maturity younger. And precocious puberty, it's even younger than 8. When we talk about precocious puberty, we're not talking about 14 and 15-year-olds. We're not talking about kids that's 12 years old, teenagers, preteens, as they call them, tweens now. We're not talking about them. Precocious puberty happens in 6-year-olds. It happens in 5-year-olds. It's happening in 7-year-olds. Evidence shows that race and ethnicity have a clear association with early puberty. In 1997, sweeping analysis published in the Journal of Pediatrics found 14.3% of black girls started to develop breast or pubic hair by the age of 6, compared to 3.7% of 6-year-old white girls. More recently, a study published in the Journal of Adolescent Health earlier this year found that black girls were more than twice as likely to start puberty earlier than white girls. Hispanic girls were more than 1.16 times more likely to show early signs of puberty than white girls. Genetically, what it's saying here, or maybe it's the risk factors. Black girls will develop into puberty earlier than white girls by double. And Hispanic girls will do it by 1.16 times more likely. So about 1.25 times, let's round up, 1.25 times more likely. Well, black girls will do it almost about double. Okay? Almost about double. This is what's going on. Precocious puberty is when someone has puberty very early on. And these are things that can be done. So we're going to talk about what can be done. According to the Center of Disease Control, between 2017 and 2020 show that 19.7% of children and teens ages 2 to 19 were affected by obesity. That equates to 14.7 million individuals. Oh, what was one of the risk factors? What was one of the risk factors for precocious puberty? What did we say was one of the risk factors? Obesity. We talked about obesity as being one of the risk factors. Data on childhood obesity has revealed some interesting findings about the population most likely to be affected. Rates of childhood obesity vary by race. Hispanic children show the highest obesity prevalence, followed by non-Hispanic black children. Okay, I'm going to go through these, and then we're going to talk a little about this. Hispanic children show the highest obesity prevalence, followed by non-Hispanic black children. Obesity prevalence is significantly higher among middle and low-income children and adolescents than it is among higher-income populations. So your money has to do with it. Obesity may also be inversely correlated to education. Some research indicate that obesity prevalence was lower in children whose head of household had a higher education. And obesity rates tend to be higher among high school students in the southern and Midwest states. Holy schmoly. Let's break this down, people. Let's break this down. I want y'all to understand this. We're talking about precocious puberty. One of the risk factors that we talked about in precocious puberty was what? We talked about obesity. We talked about weight. And we also said socioeconomic reasoning. Obesity and socioeconomic reasoning. And then we talked about genetics and all of those, but obesity and socioeconomic reasoning. When I looked up this information about obesity in children, this is the information I got. Hispanics have the highest prevalence. Black kids are right behind them. Black kids genetically, we said genes have something to do with it. Black kids are developed a little faster in puberty than other kids. So black kids are overweight, and genetically they have their they go into puberty a little sooner than other kids. Risk factors are socioeconomics. If you do not have the money, what are you more than likely to feed your kids? Not necessarily the best foods. Your kid is more than likely going to be overweight because of the foods that you're feeding them, socioeconomically. You usually, in poor communities, they have what they call food deserts. They have something called food deserts. This is an area in which they do not have access to, most of the time, fruits and vegetables. They do not have access to supermarkets. They go shopping at the bodega, where it's the lowest quality of fruits and vegetables, where most people do not want to buy them because they're usually low quality and old. Those same bodegas usually have some of the worst bread for you to eat. They have the worst meats and quality of meats for you to eat, and they sell a lot of processed foods in there. They sell everything in a box, in a bag, and everything else. They're not selling rolled oats. They only sell the instant oatmeal with the fruit and the sugar and all that extra stuff in there. They only sell the white bread. They're not selling multigrain bread. They're not selling fruits and vegetables there. They're selling the meat that's slimy. Yuck. And they got a cat sitting on the bread. They're not selling the best foods. These are in food deserts. This has to do with socioeconomic status. And one of the contributing factors to precocious puberty is these socioeconomic factors. You eat bad foods, it's going to break down the body. You eat bad foods, especially foods that's high in sugar and salt, is going to put weight on you. You are going to become obese, and you're going to increase your risk factor for getting precocious periods, or precocious puberty. Excuse me, not period, precocious puberty. Those are the risk factors. What did we say? How many people? How many kids? 14.7 million children between the ages of 2 and 19 are obese. That's 90%. 20% of all the American children are obese. And they're trying to figure out why. Why are they having earlier periods, earlier puberty? Okay? That's what they're trying to figure out. Also, the obesity rates are higher in the southern states, in the Midwest states. Where do most black and Hispanic people live? Where do most black and Hispanic people live? The largest black population is down south. The largest Hispanic population is in the Midwest. It's in the Midwest and the West Coast, but it's in the Midwest. Huge Hispanic population there. Huge black population in the southern states. So you're understanding why is it in certain areas? Hey, this is what's going on. Obesity rates in these areas are the highest. A contributing factor to precocious puberty. It happens to be greater in the southern and Midwest states. It happens to be greater in the southern and Midwest states. Okay? Now, what can we do to prevent this? What can we do to prevent this? Let's go through it, people. Number one, avoid excessive fatty foods for your teenagers and your kids. Avoid excessive fatty foods for your teenagers and your kids. 1 gram of fat contains 9 calories, while other micronutrients contain 6 calories, such as carbs. And protein takes about 6 calories to burn. Fat contains 9 calories. Alcohol contains 7. So the more fat is in your child's diet, the more easily the child can put on extra weight. Extra weight is typically in the form of body fat. Body fat produces a hormone called leptin, okay, which plays a key role on the onset of puberty. Okay, let's read this again, people. This extra weight is typically in the form of body fat. Body fat produces a hormone called leptin, which plays a role in the onset of puberty. What did we just say? 20% of our kids, or 20% of the kids' population is obese. I didn't say overweight. I said obese. I didn't even give you the stats when it comes down to overweight. Overweight means they're under 29% body fat. Obesity means they're over 30% body fat. 29, anywhere between 25 and 29% body fat is called overweight. How many more kids fall in that? Oh, he's a little chubby. Oh, he still got on his baby fat. No, his baby fat is gone because he's not a baby anymore. He's just getting fat. Okay? If we put in the kids between the body fat between 29 and 30, 25 and 30, we may add an extra 25 or 20 to 25%. Because I take my kids to the park. I take my kids to the park, and I see how many kids is overweight. Oh, that's a big boy. Oh, she's a little chubby. Come on. If you go to the park, you see the kids playing around. This ain't the kids 20, 30 years ago, when the kids were usually slender. My kids are the outliers. They're usually the skinnier kids in the park. Most of the kids are overweight. We may add on an extra 20 to 25% on top of the 20% that's obese when we put in overweight kids. Leptin acts on the hypothalamus to stimulate gonadotropin-releasing hormone, a key hormone initiating puberty. What did we just say? Leptin. The body produces a hormone. The body fat produces a hormone called leptin, which plays a key role in the onset of puberty. The cells themselves are making hormones. Remember I told you about fat? Fat is a different type of cell, man. It's the battery of the body. It loves to hold on to its fat. It doesn't like to lose its fat. The fat cells love to gain more fat. And doing that, they produce a hormone that helps them to hold on to that fat. It's called leptin. And this leptin stimulates gonadotropin hormone. And that initiates puberty. So if you got an overweight kid or if you got an obese kid, his fat is making his body secrete a hormone that turns on his puberty. Diets high in fat can lead to increased body fat and, in turn, higher leptin levels, potentially leading to earlier onset puberty. Diets high in certain fats, especially saturated fats, can lead to increased insulin resistance. Higher insulin levels can stimulate the ovaries to produce more estrogen. Come on, people. A hormone involved in onset puberty in girls, and potentially lead to earlier onset menstruation and other signs of puberty. Okay? Not only is your fat cells making leptin that makes your body create more gonadotropin hormone that stimulates the pituitary. This same diet is also stimulating insulin resistance that makes the body produce more estrogen and more testosterone, but more estrogen in particular. And that makes a girl have her period earlier and produce her onset puberty earlier. Some fats, especially those coming from animal sources, may contain hormone-like substances and endocrine disruptors that can affect the body's hormonal balance. These substances can potentially influence the timing of puberty. Okay? So we found that your fat cells produce a hormone that makes you produce more gonadotropin hormone that affects your pituitary, that tells your ovaries and your testosterone. I'm losing myself. Your what do you call it? I'm about to say balls, but oh my God, I just had a brain fart. I'm sorry. Your testes to produce more testosterone. I'm sorry, y'all. I had just a little brain fart. That causes that. So that's what the leptin does. Now your body makes insulin, and it becomes insulin resistant because the more insulin you continually secrete, and this happens in diabetics too, you become what you call insulin sensitive. The insulin stops working and it doesn't work as effectively. Your cells actually become resistance to the actually insulin, and that produces more estrogen. This even affects men. When a man has more insulin resistance, he doesn't produce the same amount of testosterone. He starts to produce more estrogen. It starts to make him become more fatty and soft. He starts to develop a beer belly, or what we call a baller's gut. This all happens because of the fatty foods. What's another thing that happens? You have to reduce sugar. It has been proven that abundant amount of food high in sugar can lead to excessive weight gain. We know about this. We talked about this a second ago. And can contribute to the development of puberty, as described. Additionally, insulin resistance triggered by large intakes of carbohydrates, with sugars being the biggest trigger for insulin production and release of the body. The more sugar one eats, the more insulin is required from the body to maintain normal blood sugars. When the body is consistently challenged with large loads to digest, it starts to become resistant to insulin over time. This insulin resistance may contribute to puberty. This is the same thing that happens to you in diabetes. The same thing that happens to someone who becomes diabetic is the same thing that can happen to a kid. The difference is a kid starts to develop precocious puberty. An adult starts to develop insulin resistance and become type 2 diabetic. As your fat cells start to, you ever notice someone who diets a lot? They do a seesaw, they call yo-yo dieting. You ever see that? Someone who has yo-yo dieting? What they do is they will diet, they will lose the weight, they put the weight back on. Lose the weight, they'll put the weight back on. Lose the weight, they'll put the weight back on. You know why? One of the reasons why that happens? because they produce a lot of leptin. The fat cells do not want to lose their fat. That leptin hormone gives you a sense of hunger. Gives you a sense of hunger. Makes you want to eat. It stimulates your hormones. And it makes you want to eat. That's one of the reasons why. Because the fat cells themselves don't want to lose the fat. They say, hey, we like being fat. This is what we do. This is what we do. We like to store as much energy as possible if we can. And they like to store fat, making sure that you stay hungry. Okay? It's the same thing that happens in insulin resistance. When you are insulin resistant, over time your insulin stops working. It used to be able, this key used to be able to open up that keyhole very easily. Unlock that key, unlock that lock very easily. Insulin is like the key. Your cells have a lock on it. Insulin opens up the door for the sugar that goes into the cell. But I guess after years of using that key so much, the teeth get worn down. And the insulin stops working. It stops working. This is called insulin resistance. It stops working. The funny thing is, the body keeps producing more insulin though. And you actually develop something called insulin toxicity. And you start to have other issues because large amounts of insulin in the blood causes oxidative damage in the rest of the body. Okay? But we ain't going to go on that because we on this. Number 3, if you want to help prevent precocious puberty, avoid the plastics. Avoid the plastics. There are a number of chemicals in plastic that appear to trigger early puberty. They include BPAs, bisphenol A. That's what that BPA stands for. Bisphenol A is a group of compounds called phthalates. BPAs is chemical compounds commonly found in plastics, such as water bottles, food storage containers, okay, the lining in metal foods and beverage cans. BPAs can leach out of these products, especially when they are heated or in contact with acidic or fatty foods. When ingesting BPAs, it can act as an estrogen mimic. Since estrogen plays a pivotal role in the onset of puberty, exposing BPAs could potentially impact pubertal timing. Okay? Pubertal timing. BPAs mimic estrogens in the body. BPAs have estrogenic effects on the body. This is why one of the reasons why they tell young men, they tell a lot of times young men to stay away from these plastics. It can reduce the amount of testosterone a man produces. Drink your water in a glass bottle. Drink your water in a reusable metal bottle. Avoid these plastics. They will damage you. They are estrogen mimicking. For men and in women, estrogen mimicking could increase your chances of getting certain cancers. Certain cancers that are estrogen dominant, such as ovarian cancer, such as breast cancer. Estrogen dominant cancers. These BPAs mimic them. And they affect someone young, and it can increase their chances of going through puberty. Phthalates are another group of chemicals used in plastics. They are plastic more flexible and harder to break. They can be found in a variety of toys, detergent, lubricating oils, food packaging, and pharmaceuticals, as well as personal care products such as nail polish, hairsprays, and shampoos. Make sure you always find a shampoo that says phthalate free. Some phthalates can disrupt the endocrine system by reducing the level of sex hormones, which are crucial for development and function of reproductive system. These endocrine disruptors can bind to hormone receptors in the body, altering the normal function of the hormone. They may stimulate early productions of the hormone, triggering the onset of puberty sooner than expected. Okay? Another thing you want to do is avoid chemicals and pesticides. That's easier said than done. A number of pesticides have been found to be associated with early puberty to greater or lesser degree. These include DDT. Even though DDT has been banned in the United States, some of the DDT that's still used in the world, and it still is, and DDE, and they are classified as pesticides and organophosphates and organochlorines. These have been shown to be endocrine disruptors. DDT and its metabolite DDE. Oh, people say, they don't do DDT no more. No, they don't in the United States. But they do it in South America. And guess when you're not getting the same fruits during the summertime, you like your Chilean grapes. You like your Argentine fruit. Some of your fruit may come from Mexico. Are they spraying it with DDT? Do you know this? If you're not doing organic, this is some of the things you have to worry about. Avoid the pesticides. And avoid PUFAs. PUFAs are typically coated with, what is it called? Perfluoroalkyl substance. PUFAs. Perfluoroalkyl substances. Especially known as POFAs. PUFAs are a man-made chemical that has been used for decades for various applications, including production of non-stick cookware, but are also used in water-repellent clothing and stain-resistant fabric and carpets. PUFAs are known as endocrine disruptors. We keep talking about, what is the endocrine system? The endocrine system is the glandular system of the body. When you think of the endocrine system, think of your pituitary. Think of your thyroid. Think of your thymus. Think of your adrenals. Think of your gonads like your testes and your ovaries. Think of your pineal gland. Any of what else? Think of your pancreas. Even though the pancreas is a part of the digestive system, is also a part of the endocrine system. And I'm thinking of something else. Let me see. Did I say your thymus? I said your thyroid? But these are glands in the body that are secreting hormones that affect everything we do. Your metabolism is regulated by endocrine system. The way we absorb nutrition has a lot to do with the endocrine system. When you turn from a kid to an adult, puberty is endocrine system. The way we sleep, melatonin, endocrine system, the pineal gland. The way we think. When you want to get up and run around, your energy level, your exhaustion, the endocrine system. Your sexual hormones, you like something, all that endocrine system. PUFAs are endocrine disruptors. They disrupt the system. The endocrine system regulates the hormones in the body, which in turn controls various functions, including growth, metabolism, and reproduction. Disruption in the endocrine system can affect the timing and the onset of puberty. More specifically, studies have shown and suggest that exposure to PUFAs can result in earlier onset menstruation in girls. Earlier menstruation is a marker of puberty, and there have been research and studies that have shown that in utero, in early life exposure to PUFAs potentially affect the developmental milestone, including the timing of puberties. I said puberties. Puberty. So PUFAs have been shown to affect puberty, as well as have been shown to be an endocrine disruptor. So you have multiple things that have this effect on, or multiple, excuse me, I want to say conditions, but multiple outside factors that can affect you. And also inside factors. You have obesity in our children. You have the excessive amount of eating fatty foods, excessive amounts of eating sugary foods. You also have the PUFAs that come from the nonstick pans and things like that. You also have the chemicals that's in our environment that's coming from the plastics, as well as the pesticides that's affecting puberty. So, with that all said and done, I am done with the topic today. I would like to open up for questions or comments. Please, if you have any questions or comments. I hope y'all like this one today, too. This was definitely different.
This was absolutely wonderful and so on time. Thank you for everything you said. One of the other pieces I would put in is that when our young people are going through that hormonal change so young and early, before it's displayed physically, it's displayed emotionally.
Oh, definitely,
yes.
Yes.
To get that, that attitude and that flair, and the young men start bucking up, and it's like, what you doing? Who you talking to? Slow down. But They don't even know what they're doing, Brother Abdul. They don't realize that they've crossed the line of a sort because it's an internal process. They're getting grown while they're still short.
Yeah.
Without a condition. They're getting grown, so their attitude, and parents are not ready for that. So I'm going to share this talk because I speak about that a whole lot to parents, and it's in my book. Your child, you're still braiding their hair and putting on barrettes, and they're talking like they want all their teeth knocked out that haven't come in yet. This is how parents feel. So don't be so quick to react. Just think about why they are acting this way, what's leading it, because, like you said from the top, there's no one on listening to you who has not gone through the process. But I can almost imagine that there might be 1% who had a conversation like you just gave on any level prior to it. The most we talk about is you're going to get a beard, your voice is going to crack, you're going to get your cycle, you're going to get breast, don't get pregnant. But that whole process that you just explained, I bow to you. Thank you.
No problem. What's going on, Latoya?
All is well. Great show, Health Man. But you were just about to say something.
No. Go ahead. What you was about to say. Go ahead.
Great show, Health Man, I must say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I tried to do something a little different. I was like, it's usually the same, but I wanted to talk because this is becoming more prevalent. Like, I know somebody who has a daughter, and she got a period at 10, and he couldn't believe it. Like, my daughter got a period. Like, it's just like she got it at 10, and he's like, holy smoke! Like, and a 10-year-old, that's like, what is that? Like 4th or 5th grade? It's like, oh my God, how are you getting a period so young? And it kind of messed him up because now, and I could imagine what his wife was feeling, but he was like, it threw him for a loop. Like, wow, my daughter had a period at 10. Who has a period at 10? But this is what's going on in our society with all these new chemicals, with all the fatty foods, and it really, like, that's why I really talked about the risk factors. The risk factors are obesity. The risk factors are socioeconomic. The risk factors are genetic. There's so many other risk factors. But one thing we do know in common is that people, the longer we're living, the kids are getting their periods much younger. And I'm saying period because it happens more to girls than boys. Like I said, it's 4 times more likely to happen to girls than boys. Okay? So that's why I keep saying period, period, period. I don't want it to seem like it's only girls, but it's mainly girls. It doesn't happen often in boys. It's super rare in boys. But it does happen. It just affects girls more. It affects girls more often, and that's probably because a lot of the chemicals that is in our environment are estrogen dominant. And girls uptake and utilize estrogen much more effectively because that's their master hormone in their body.
You ready?
Yes.
So what if it is happening to boys, and that's why we have so many young gay men?
So I didn't want to bring that up, but that is a contributing factor. They do believe one of the reasons why there's a larger population of young gay men or young men is because of they're becoming more estrogen dominant because of the chemicals out here. Yes, that is true. So they're not necessarily having their puberty turned on. So the difference is this is precocious puberty, and that's why it's happening more to girls. But for boys, they call it the feminization of boys. They call it the feminizing of boys. Yes.
Well, speak the language, Brother Abdul.
Yes.
You shouldn't go back on that. I mean, I know Eve gets blamed for everything, but, if we laying it on a balanced line, let's lay it on. So now that you mentioned that, I say, too, it's horrifying. It's horrifying for a woman to get her cycle at 14 or 15. I could not imagine having an 8-year-old daughter who begins to see this, and I know it's happening. They
have kids that's having it at 6.
And so we also have to look at the why. And the why factor is all of the things you mentioned, but then you also mentioned the high percentage rate in certain neighborhoods.
Yep.
That's why we have to know there's an agenda, and we have to be mindful of the agenda that's being played on us. I know. I've known since I was very young. My antennas are brushing the clouds always. That it was the system that was creating the conditions that they create. I say the agenda makers create it, and then they pretend they do send the money down, but to certain organizations that's supposed to help it. But you created it. They know exactly what they're doing. Because we have had, and I'll speak in a minute, homosexuality forever. According to the book, there was a Sodom and Gomorrah. So it's not a new thing. What's new is when you hear a 10-year-old saying that they've decided they want to go a certain way, which is a same-sex relationship. First of all, kid, you're not even having sex. What are you talking about? But it doesn't stop them from understanding their attraction to the same sex. But it's master manipulation by the agenda makers. Thank you. I'm definitely sending this out. Thank you.
No problem.
Yes, may I be heard?
Yes.
Yes. Just clarification. Did you say lectins, L-E-C?
No, leptin. L-E-P-T-I-N.
Okay. I thought you were talking about lectins on those. They're like in certain foods. There's this doctor who comes on Facebook who talks about different lectins in foods that we shouldn't eat. So thank you for clarifying that.
No problem. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, yeah.
Talking about, definitely. Secondly, you said that it's an economic problem. And usually when we say it's an economic problem, I know where you're going with that, but it still can be, a probability, even though a person who has, may not be able to shop at Whole Foods like I do, okay, or shop at King's, but can shop at ShopRite or can shop at Acme or can shop at maybe some of the neighborhood stores who do have some fresh produce. So I'm saying maybe they can't go organic, and I know organic is the best, trust me, but they can go non-GMO, non-GMO, genetically modified organisms, And also with respect to they can also do the non-BPA. It could be non-BPA. Isn't that important as to just to have the BPA? You can get the non-BPA plastics as well to help out?
You can. So this is the thing. Even though there are non-BPAs, there are metabolites that act similar. So one thing about the plastic companies, that they will stop making BPA bottles, but then they'll have a metabolite that's very similar because BPAs in themselves have their usage. We like things to be able to move and crunch and, plastic bottles that's easily to fold and crush down and all those other things like that. That has its benefits in society. The problem is those same plastic leach. So you may not have a BPA bottle, but you may have a non-BPA bottle, but then they come out with a metabolite that's very similar, but it's not the same. So it's not the same, and it may not be as bad as a regular endocrine disruptor, but it still has some of those effects to it. And that's what they'll say, because they only classifying these chemicals. These chemicals are similar, but they're not classifying them yet. So they haven't been classified. Secondary thing that you said so that you talked about the socioeconomic parts of it. That's true. Do you have to only eat organic? No. The problem is in certain communities, they have food deserts. So they don't have access to Acme. They don't have access to ShopRite. They don't have access to Kroger's. They don't have access to King's. When I worked at Whole Foods, God bless me, I worked at Whole Foods. One of the decisions they made when they was putting businesses up is that they looked at the education level of the community, and that's the decision they made to put a store there. That was the original decision. They will look at it wasn't about the money. It was about the what I just say, the education of the community. So they want to make sure the education. They were more college grads in that area because college grads usually have a little more money, but not only that, they think about their health a little more. So that was a decision for Whole Foods and a lot of other stores. They want to make sure they're in the areas in which they can do good business. So that's why you sometimes don't find these stores in poor communities because they know, hey, this is not going to be a good business decision for them. So that's what I mean, socioeconomic factors.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, I know you talked about you have 2 sons, correct, sir?
Yes, I do.
You said they were slim, correct?
Yeah, they're slim, yes.
Okay, so what are their diets like? I always ask the guests, what are they eating? Because I want to know something that can probably help me out that, even
well, my kids, so we're not vegetarian or anything like that. My kids, they'll eat more. I always say I'm plant-based. So they eat more plants than anything else. Like this morning, they always have to eat fruit. They got to eat at least 2 pieces of fruit to 3 pieces of fruit a day. That's standard. They also, they had chicken tonight. We had we had a crazy dinner. I'm not gonna lie, it was banging. But my wife said, hey, let's make some mac and cheese. So we had mac and cheese, and I don't really do dairy. I'm not gonna lie, but today was one of the days I did a little dairy. So we had mac and cheese, but we used kamut elbows. So kamut elbows. We also had some fried fish, but we fried it home with grapeseed oil and all that other stuff. And we had a big thing of purple cabbage. That was my dinner. My mother's over here and all that stuff. And then but what did they have for lunch? They had a veggie burger and all that other stuff. They had the apple. What did they have for breakfast? One of my sons had a smoothie. The other one had pancakes with strawberries on top. What did they do today? They went outside and played for an hour and a half. My kids go out and play. I take my kids to the park. I let them run around. My other kid, my oldest boy, was riding his bike. I let them run around. They in boxing. They do sports. I have my kids active. So I don't let my kids just sit around and play video games all day. So that's another thing. So my diet is about 70% plants, and then I do 30% of chicken and fish and whatever else. I don't do red meat or anything like that. And I rarely do mac and cheese. But my wife said, hey, let's make mac and cheese. I said, you know what? I ain't having it since probably Thanksgiving. I may have had a little bit at Thanksgiving. I haven't had it since then. So I said, okay, we'll do it tonight. And why not? Hey, my mom's like it. It is what it is. And even that, our cheese was even good, So we didn't use the regular trash cheese. So it's we try. We try, but I'm still and I'm going to drink some Cormenti when I leave. It's a bitter. I'm going to drink some Cormenti when I get off this call, and which I'm about to get off in a second.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
No problem.
So, Brother Abdul, how would one cleanse or detox the endocrine system from these chemicals that may have already become a part of our bodies and influencing? So
one of the hardest things, that's a great question. You really don't detox your endocrine system. I know people say that. You really don't detox your endocrine system. What you do is detox because it's like any other thing. It needs to be fed by the blood. It needs to be fed by the lymphatic system is the waste. So you clean the blood, you clean the lymphatic system. That's the best thing. And some of these chemicals are just, it's terrible, but they're stuck in us. They don't even know how to get rid of them all. Some of them have invaded, and they store in the fat. So first and foremost, you want to lose your weight. You want to lose excessive weight. You want to clean the blood. And we talked about the herbs like burdock, echinacea. You can use dandelion root. You could use red clover. Chaparral is a really good herb for cleaning deep into the cells. You can only drink about 2 weeks at a time, though. You got to stop after like 2 weeks to drink it. Really good for detoxing really deep into the cell. Chaparral and devil's claw, that helps. And then you can also do things that clean the lymphatic system, like barberry, like philodendron, like echinacea is really good, like coat's foot, things like that drain the lymphatic system, because the lymphatic system is the sewer system of the body. You want to drain those excessive chemicals out of the lymphatic system. But some of these chemicals just store in the body. They call them forever chemicals. PUFAs are considered forever chemicals. They are stuck in you. Even when people die and they resume the body and they look at their bones, some of their bones have PUFA still in them. You know, so these things are forever chemicals. That's what they call them, forever chemicals. They don't break down. You can eliminate them, but they get stored in the body. The key is to make sure you have high antioxidant foods, high antioxidant diets that prevents the free radical damage that come from these PUFAs and these endocrine disruptors. Okay?
Great answer to a great question. Thank you.
People, I'm about to go. I still have to drink my Cormenti and I got to go to bed. Well, listen, I appreciate everybody tuning in today for the Health Man Show. Once again, we'll see you next week, Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I wish everyone have a good night, everyone. Y'all have a good night.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.